Hi, good evening friends. Today we are going to just complete here relative pronoun. Before this relative pronoun, we have already covered all the other pronouns in the last part of the videos. So you can watch these videos in the playlist of the pronoun. I have already delivered a lecture on all these pronouns. So whoever is interested in the Hindi language, they can go and watch my Hindi channels there, and they can just enjoy the videos on Hindi channels. And whoever is comfortable with this English language can watch this video. Or you can also watch the videos in bilingual, either in Hindi or English, or both. You can mix them up. Here it is one of the most difficult pronouns and one of the most lovable or beautiful pronouns in all the pronoun chapter. It is not only a pronoun, it is also the masterpiece of the grammar. Why, you can say? Because here all doors are opened for the advanced English grammar, because you don't only learn here only the relative pronoun words here, that is who, whom, whose, which, that, where, when, or why. Among them, who, whom, whose, which, that, they are generally, and in most of the books or in schools where you would have studied, and where, when, and why, these are informally used here as a relative clause there, okay, because they are also known or they are just seem similar to adverb clause or noun clause. But the above words which have, they are relative clause, but they are the adjective clauses, okay. In this part of the video, if you have yet not studied about sentences, you have not practiced about the sentence, what is sentence, how can you form the sentence, how can you know about the difference between subject predicate, what are the words which are used or which are required to form a subject, what are the words which are so much used to form object, verbs, complement of the sentence, or the predicate of the sentence. Because without knowing this, it's very difficult for the new learners to know about the relative pronoun. Because if you only know the words I have already written, these are the relative words, are not sufficient. You have to just know more than that, and to know more than that, you need to know the structure of the sentence at first, how to make the affirmative sentence, negative sentence, interrogative sentence, okay. Though I will take only the affirmative sentences in this part of the video to know more and more about relative pronoun, I will take for the purpose of the analysis and synthesis of the sentence. I would try to analyze or synthesize together with the help of the dependent or independent clauses in the sentence, so that the sentence would be not so much difficult for you. Before that, if you have not practiced over the sentence, I have not created sentence video so far, so you can watch the sentence videos, or you can just study, or you can read in your books, or if you have already the previous knowledge of sentence, then it would be very helpful for you. There are several things I am going to just explain in relative pronoun. I already told you that this pronoun just opens the door of the advanced grammar, because you not only just learn only single pronoun here, the words I have already written here, you learn many more things together. So let's start without wasting the time. Before knowing more and more about the relative pronoun, we need to know what is the meaning of the relative pronoun, because the definition will just be explained in detail. So what's the definition? It is given: a relative pronoun is a word that introduces to a dependent clause and connects it to an independent clause. Here there are the two words. First one is the dependent clause, and second one is the independent clause. You need to know about the clause at first before knowing them the definition. It is saying that it just tells about the dependent clause, and later dependent clause is connected to an independent clause. But there are many rules to do like that. You can't connect without knowing the rules, without knowing the basic meanings of these words which are connected with the independent clause. And sometimes the connectors, these relative pronouns, relative words, they are sometimes omitted when you introduce at first the independent clause and you start with the dependent clause. Sometimes they are omitted, but with not all the relative words. You can omit like that, which, who, whom. You can omit, but you can't omit like whose, where, when, or why. So let's look at them. At first we need to know what is the meaning of clause. Here we know what is the meaning of clause. So basically, clause is a part of sentence which has a subject or predicate. In some grammar books it is written about the verbs. The verbs I already explained in last classes in distributive pronoun that there are two kinds of verbs: transitive or intransitive, helping verbs, primary verbs, linking verbs. You can also watch them, or you can just wait for my verbs videos I will upload very soon in coming days. Okay, so here what is the clause? So you can generally know, basically know that clause is a part of sentence which has a subject or predicate. It means if you write John is my brother, is my brother. If you write John is my brother, here John is a subject and is my brother is a predicate. Now there are several rules to make subject and predicate. How can you make the subject and predicate? It would be also explained by me in next parts of the videos when I will start explaining about the subject complement, adverb complement. There are several other kinds of the ways by which you can make the predicate of the sentence. And it's not necessary that only single word you can use to form the subject, because there are many learners who always use the single word to make the subject. They are the new learners, but they are unknown about that, and you need to avoid such mistakes. For example, there John is only a single word to form a subject, but it's not necessary. A part of sentence can also be a subject. There are some group of words like you can say determiners, you can take the name together and you can just form a subject altogether. You can also use the preposition. For example, the president of USA, the president of England, the president of India. So you can just form with the help of this one. So there are the combination of 3, 4 and 5 ones. What are the combinations? If you write here the president of India, what's written here? The president of India. So here it is written the president of India. Okay, so here there are 4 words: the president of an India. So the is an article, president, you know already what kind of noun it is. It is a common noun. Of is a preposition, and India is also a noun. What kind of noun? It is proper noun. So with the help of these 4 we are making a sentence. The president of India is coming tomorrow. Now the president of India is a subject and is coming tomorrow is predicate P. So it is also a sentence. What kind of sentence it is? It is a positive or affirmative sentence, and it is also a clause, because we have already known through definition that clause is a part of sentence which has a subject and predicate. Now I have told you that a part of sentence, what does it mean? It means that if wherever there are the subject and predicate in the sentence, then you can just easily select out the clause. Now after knowing what is the clause, you can see here that it is also a clause. It is also a clause. Now we just move forward towards the dependent or independent clauses. What are the differences between the two? What I have written here are the independent clauses. Why? because they are complete in its meaning, their meanings. They don't require other sentences to make or complete the meaning. And if other clause are used, okay, here, then you can say that they are the dependent clause, because these clauses have already the complete meaning, but dependent clauses never have the complete meaning. They have to always depend on the independent clause. Now there are the different names of dependent and independent clauses. If you start from the basic grammar, if you go to the university English grammar, so in the university English grammar you can find out that there are the different names of dependent or independent clauses. I write few names and you can just know the similar names, or you would have just heard about that. Okay, look at them. So there are two kind of clause here. The first one is independent, right here, independent clause. Now it is dependent clause, dependent clause. Next one is main clause. It is also known as main clause. It is known as also another name, just like you can say subordinate clause, subordinate, dinate clause. You can also write here another name. For example, you can write here principal clause. Just be aware of the, or careful with the spelling. It is P-R-I-N-C-A-P-L. It is not P-R-I-N-C-A-P-L-E. So try to just avoid the mistake. Okay. Principal clause. Here it is. What kind of clause it is? It is embedded clause. Embedded clause. Sometimes there are embedded clause is not so much famous in use and spoken, but dependent clause is so much famous, and in earlier grammar books, traditional grammar books, you would have studied about subordinate clause together, not dependent clause. But if you take the university English grammars, where you can get the embedded clause together, okay, here you can see that independent clause have also three names differently, and in some books it is written main clause, in some it is written principal clause, and there would be some books where these all three would be written there together for avoiding the confusion. Okay, so now it is the part of the clause. There are two kind of clause, the dependent or independent. If you just keep in the mind these two words, then the next level would be easy for you. So let's see next. Now this dependent clause, not because independent clause doesn't have any part, it is single in its part, but the dependent clause has again three parts. It has three parts. Okay, what are the parts? First, it has noun clause. What is? It has noun clause. Second one, it has adjective clause. And third one, it has adverb clause. Adverb clause. So noun clause, adjective clause and adverb clause. So in this relative pronoun, what kind of clause would be used here? So you can see here that who, whom, whose, which and that, they would be used as adjective clause. Adjective clause. Now the question rises, why or how can they be used as adjective clauses? Because you know already that adjective always defines noun or pronoun. So whichever would be the sentence would always be defined as adjectives, okay, or you can say whichever would be the words before these relative pronouns, relative words, they would be noun or pronoun, and they would be defined with the help of these words, so they would be the adjective clause. Now the noun clause and adverb clause, actually noun clause, why is not used as a noun clause here, but it seems that it is used as a noun clause because it is actually used as an adverb clause, but there are some persons, they commit mistake by using them as a noun clause. For example, they use like this in the relative pronoun. They speak, I don't know why they went there. So they think that they are the relative pronoun, but they are not as a relative one, because relative pronoun would be only possible when before any relative words there would be noun or pronoun. But if you speak, I don't know, here no would be the verb, it would not be a noun or pronoun, so it would be wrong use, okay, and you can not just satisfy the relative pronoun there, okay. So now let's start knowing about here about relative pronoun. As I told you that these two would be used as an adjective clause, these are also relative words, but these two seems that they are as adverb clause, like adverb of place and adverb of time, and this one is it seems that they are just adverb clause. They are also like adverb clause, clause of reason, you can say there. But sometimes I told you that teachers or the speakers makes mistake and they just use them in the noun clause, but they think that they are using them as relative pronoun. Relative pronoun, okay. So let's start now forward. Next, now before knowing about these about the dependent or independent clauses, we need to know about defining or non-defining. It is also known like identifying or modifying, non-identifying. You can also know them in the form of restrictive or continuative sense. So these are the way by which you can just separate of the extra information or the essential information. So you need to know about the extra information and essential information. What is the extra information? Extra information or additional information, you can say, or essential information. Essential information. So whenever you have the essential information, you have to use them in defining clause. Defining. And whenever you have the extra information, you have non-defining. Non-defining. Now what is the, how can you just separate them? So you can separate them with the help of the comma. Now let's see the sentence. Dr. Smith who is my neighbor comes to meet me in the office. Now you can say that Smith is already doctor, and Smith is also itself a name. So there are two ways by which you are just here not defining Dr. Smith more. It is used as a non-defining. So you can say that you can just understand in the form of the identifying or non-identifying, because Dr. Smith is already identified. Who is a Smith? Smith is doctor, and who is doctor? Doctor is a Smith already. Now you don't need to tell about Dr. Smith more and more in the sentence. So what do you have to do here? You are just giving the extra information about Dr. Smith. So whenever you give the extra information, they are under non-defining, and you have to put the comma. Here you have to put comma, and here you have to put comma to separate the sentence. Okay. You can't say that separate the sentence clearly, but you can say that separate the clause here. So now the clause is very clear. Where is the adjective clause, or where is the here principal clause? You can say that where is the independent clause and where is the dependent clause. Next thing you need to know here, that relative pronoun always looks back to its word. That word is, because it is relative pronoun, it is showing the relation. So this word is either the noun or pronoun. So here noun is mostly used. So you can see here that Smith is noun, and who is being used here to show where is a Smith. So you can say that a Smith is the antecedent of who. So whichever would be the word here, it would be who, whom, that, which, whose, here, where, when, or why. Okay, these would be always used after looking the previous word, and this word is known as an antecedent. Okay. Second one thing is that, as I have already written here, that who and whom, they are used for person. So Dr. Smith is a person, so who is used as a subject of the dependent clause or related clause here. So you can say that here relative clause is completely written or clearly written. So there are the two sentences if you just analyze the sentence, because they are written in the synthesis form. If you analyze the sentence, it becomes two. The first one is Dr. Smith comes to meet me, comes to meet, I just separate it. Dr. Smith comes to meet me in the office. Second one is Dr. Smith is my neighbor, is my neighbor. What do you find here? That in both sentences, Dr. Smith has been repeatedly used. Why? Because Dr. Smith is the subject of the sentence. In the first sentence, it is being spoken about Dr. Smith, or next sentence it is also being told about Dr. Smith. Okay. In both part of the sentence, Dr. Smith is here as a subject. So here who has been used as a subject. Who is who? Here Dr. Smith is who, and it is completely replacing Dr. Smith. You know that pronoun always replaces noun here. So noun here, pronoun has been replaced with the help of the who, and it is also showing the relation with Smith. Who is Smith? So Smith is the doctor, and who has been used in place of Dr. Smith as a subject of the relative clause. Okay, if you just use them in the object one, yes, let's see. Dr. Smith, you can write in this way, whom. Now I have just converted who to whom, but in informal English, who is also used in place of whom in objective case. Okay, but in written it is a strict, standard way to always use whom in a formal sense. So avoid using who here in objective. Dr. Smith, whom you called, comes to meet me in the office. It means there is a person, Dr. Smith, and someone called Dr. Smith. And who called? You called. So after who and whom, there is the chances of becoming a subject. If you don't use in this way, then you are using them incorrectly, not correctly. So you need to just use them in a correct way. After who or whom, if you use them who or whom in object, because whom is already or always used as an object, but who is also used here sometimes in formal English. So you can just try to avoid such mistakes in future. And after such words, whom or who, again subject is brought here. You is a subject and you is just calling Dr. Smith. Who is calling? You is calling. So you can just stick to make sense and to understand more and more about it like this. Dr. Smith comes to meet me in the office. Second sentence you can also write here. You call Dr. Smith. Now in earlier sentence, Dr. Smith was the subject, but here in this sentence, you is the subject of the sentence. So what is the object of the sentence? So subject is you, called is the verb, but Dr. Smith is an object. This is why in place of Dr. Smith here, whom has been used as an object. Okay, so it is used for the person who and whom, and it is used for only in objective case. Okay, now do you need to put the comma? Yes, because Dr. Smith has been used as a non-defining, so you can use here comma. Okay, let's see next one. Now next sentence is, my wife who is in New York will come today. Now look at the sentence, what is written. My wife who is in New York will come today. Now here, after my wife, I have not used here comma. Without comma, I have written the sentence. So this sentence is correct for those persons who have more than, or who has more than, you can say, one wives. More than one. 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives. Because here, who is before who, comma is not put here, so it is used as a restrictive sense, not conjunctive sense here. Okay, so my wife who is in New York will come today. Can't we write the same sentence in a non-defining order? Yes, you can write, but when you can write when you have only single wife. But the person who has more than one wife in some culture where it is practiced, or the person who has more than one wife, but one wife is dead and another one he has married, this sentence would be acceptable. But this sentence always says that all the wives you have, they are alive, they are not dead. So if the sentence accepts that one wife is dead and another wife is still living with someone else, or someone's, then you can say that this sentence would be here correct one, because my wife clearly gives the meaning of more than one wife if you don't put here the comma. The same sentence, if you write here with the comma, for example, if you put comma, then now it has been used as a conjunctive sense, and now you are giving the extra information. So just let's start doing the others one. Here, if you just remove here my wife, if you just write here my sister, the sentence will be completely acceptable if someone has more than one sister. Okay, so this sentence will be completely acceptable. My sister who is in New York will come tomorrow or today. Okay, but if someone has only single sister, not more than one sister, then you can use always comma here. So this is the reason grammatical structures in the English language or English language is so much the subject of the controversy in grammar books, okay, or in the language. So let's start now doing some more. So far we have known where to put comma and where not to put comma. So now just let's see where to use which or where to use that. So that is always used with what? It is always used with defining clause. It means it always gives the essential information about the sentence. For example, if you write, this is the building that I bought. That I bought. Now here, that has been used here to saying that essential information about it. Can't you use what, which? Yes, you can use which here, but you remember that if you use here which, because which and that both are used for the non-living things here. So if you just use them for here, the building here, if you use here in the sentence, okay. Yeah, I was just saying you that if you are just using them in the defining clause here, then you have to always use here that. You can also use here which, but just try to understand that if you are using them in non-defining clause, then you don't have to use here which. You can always write here, this is the building that I bought. This is the building that I bought. It means just you are giving the essential information. Because you bought the building, so this is the essential information. This is the required information. It is not an extra information. Let's see other sentences. The building that I bought yesterday was hers. Now you can see that I bought yesterday, it is a relative clause. It is giving the essential information about building because it is saying that I bought the building. You can also say that it is if you think that it is an extra information here from here to here, then you can put the comma over here. Okay. But now look at the sentence here. I have written here, the building that has strong pillars was hers. The building was hers. Okay. The building has strong pillars. Sorry, that I had strong pillars. Now why I has just changed from has to had. This is the reason, because this is an independent clause. When the independent clause is in past, then the dependent clause needs to be in past. It's necessary, it's essential. Okay, so here you can use here the building that had strong pillars. What's happening here, that it is giving the essential information about building because it is saying more about the building. What kind of building it is? It has strong pillars. So we can't use them in the non-defining clause because you need to define here the building furthermore. Okay, that's the reason we can't just use them in a non-defining way. Now, can't you use here which? Yes, we can use here which. We can use here which. Okay. But whenever there is the chance of making, there is the way or there is the time to use them in non-defining, always use which in place of that. You can put here the comma, but not with that and comma. It should not be possible there. Only use which, okay, in place of that. So where to use which? Now look at here. If you just write here, the building that I saw, the building that I saw was hers. Now you can see that I saw is an extra information. It is not giving more information about building. So here that would not be possible at first. If you use that in a spoken form, so you can speak, but if you want to just make them the non-identifying clause because it is giving the extra information, so you have to use which in written way. So you can just use here which. So you can write here the building, comma, which I saw, comma, was hers. Now there are the two sentences. The first sentence is the building was hers. I saw the building. So which has been used as an object of the sentence. Now you can omit these objects of the sentence. For example, because here the meaning is I saw the building. The building is here. I saw the building. You can just write in this way. I saw the building, the first sentence, that is in dependent clause, and second one is the building was hers. So here if you just repeating the sentence, if you're repeating the building, then the building is here the object, but in the first sentence the building is the subject. So here in the independent clause the building is the subject, but in dependent clause the building is object. So the same word is the object in the dependent clause. So the object, in place of object here, which has been used. So here which has been used as an object. And if it is used as an object there, then you can omit. It means you don't need to write sometimes. You can directly write here in this way. Building I saw was hers. You can just write or you can speak, but it is in informal English. It is not in formal English, okay? Now let's see other sentences. Next is whose. Whose is used for making the relation. It can be used with any living or non-living things. For example, animal, people, persons, or any living or non-living things, objects. For example, because it is showing the relation, it is showing the possession, you can say, and everything has some possession. For example, the chair whose legs are broken is mine. Again, here whose has been used as a defining clause because we are giving more information, essential information about chair. We are saying about chair that the leg of the chair are broken. So it is an essential information. This is why we can't use here comma to make it non-defining clause. Okay. So we can use here, speak here. The chair is mine, the first sentence. The legs of the chair are broken. Yes, the first sentence would be the chair is mine. The second sentence would be the leg of the chair. You would have remembered if you would have watched my noun chapter where I have just explained about how to form non-possessive. There, whenever you make the non-possessive, because chair is non-living thing, so you can just make the legs of the chair, not chair's leg. It's not correct there. Okay, so you need to only use the legs of the chair. Okay, so the chair whose legs are broken is mine. Okay, now the legs and chairs, you can see here that whose has been used after looking at chair. So the antecedent of the whose is chair. Okay, and chair is non-living thing, and legs has the relation with the chair. It has the possession with the chair. Okay, for example, the legs of the person, the legs of boys or the girls, the legs of the dogs, cats, etc. They have also the possession. So here there is a relation of the legs with chair. So the same sentence can be used in this way. Okay, next one is, now the question rises, can't we just omit whose? No, never. Don't try to omit whose. Okay, let's see other use of whose with person or with animals. For example, the bird whose legs are broken sits here. Now you can see here clearly that bird is a living thing. You can also write here human. For example, the boy whose legs are broken sits here. So there are two sentences. The first is that the bird sits here. Second one is the legs of the birds. The legs of the bird, okay, so are broken. So there is a relation of the legs with the bird, and this is why whose has been used. Always remember that after whose always you have to use noun here, okay, because there is also the noun in here. If you write here legs of the bird, then you can see here clearly that here noun has been used both sides. So after this relative words you have to use here the noun together. Whose legs, whose contribution, whose area, whose stamina, whose thinking, whose, you can use any other of them likewise, okay. So let's just see others ones. Next is where, when and why. They are very easy to be used here, okay, because they are also used as a conjunctions or connectors, you can say, okay. Like I went to a store where I bought something. Here a store is a place, and where has been used after looking backward, store. So it is also like the relative words, because it is just telling about the store is a place here, but where meaning is at which, okay. Next is when. It was Sunday when I saw you. Here it is being used as a time and as a connector, as you can say adverb clause of time, you can say here, okay. So it was Sunday, so it was the time on which. When means here on which, it means on the day of Sunday on which I saw you, okay. Very is not so much difficult as adjective clauses, okay. Now others one, why. It is showing for reason here. There are some persons they commit mistake here after using them by noun clause, like I don't know why you went there, but you don't have to use, because you have to always use the noun or pronoun before the structure or before the beginning of the dependent clause. So let's start here. You can write, this is the reason why I don't go there, because before why there is a noun reason, okay, and you are using why, okay. But in place of why, sometimes that is also used here, but because you are using here the reason clearly, so to show the reason you have to use here, or we have to use here why. But in place of why you can also use here that in some other senses, okay. So let's just complete them. Here you can see I have explained that before why there is a reason, that is the word, that is the noun, and it is the antecedent of why, and it is just like the relative clause, you can say see here, and it is just completing the meaning of the sentence, okay. So now it's over what I have explained to you, that dependent clause and independent clause, these are the two main things, like defining, non-defining clauses, like where to use here, who, whom, whose, which, that, where, when, and why. I would just explain them in future classes, and I would tell you about where to use them in a correct order, and I would just take few sentences in some other classes. So now I am going to just give you some sentences in the analysis form on the screen. You have to just make them in either comment box or notebook. If you don't have the time, I just leave them with an example. Just you need to do the same either in the notebook or in the comment box. So let's see in the example. You can use defining, non-defining clauses. For example, if you write, John is a boy. John helps me. So you can just connect with the help of the relative pronoun there. You can use here after knowing, after just remembering what I have taught you so far. You can use your John, who is a boy, helps me. Now you can see clearly that John is already a boy, and John, we are going to give the extra information about John. We are not going to give the essential information about John. So you can put here the comma. Okay, so there are the two clauses. First one is the John helps me, it is independent clause, and who is the boy, it is a dependent clause, because it is completely dependent on the independent clause. Okay, so just thank you so much. By then, take care yourself.